to take an opportunity to talk about JSPM and to show you how we can use React with JSPM. There will be some demo live coding related to that. So what is JSPM? So JSPM is this new package manager. I think you all know NPM, Node Package Manager, which is a package manager for Node, which, like the name says, it's mostly for the server. And there are many attempts to bring this powerful idea to the client, the browser. And we have tools like Browserify. Are you familiar? Who's familiar with Browserify? Okay, Webpack, maybe? Yeah, exactly. So we have Webpack, we have Browserify, we have many different tools to manage dependencies on the browser. And the idea is to unify somehow this ecosystem. And this is where JSPM comes into play. As you know, there's a lot of changes in JavaScript right now. We all, at some point, will migrate to ES6, which is now renamed to ES 2015, this new JavaScript format that brings a lot of new interesting features. So who uses on a daily basis ES6 at work? Okay, and who uses ES7? We try to use that. Okay, there are some people who try to extend it. So we have these different standards that comes into play. We can use them because we can transpile ES6 and ES7 into JavaScript, like the JavaScript we have now, which is ES5. We have tools like NPM. We have tools like Bower. We have tools like Webpack. And when you start a project, you often think, what should I use? Should I use this or should I use that? At the same time, on top of that, we have different systems for modules. So we have CommonJS, we have AMD, we can use globals, etc., etc. So especially for beginners, it's not very easy to realize how to start a project and what's the best thing to use right now. And System.js is a universal module loader which tries to unify all that. So it tries to unify CommonJS, it tries to unify AMD and globals into one single package which is ready to use. And the idea is to it's built on top of ES6 modules, which means that you can right now, today, use the things that we will be using in the future. I hope it will be near future. So as I said, it's ES6 modules that you can use right now. And there is this difference between Node on the server and browser. So System.js tries to unify that. And this is where JSPM comes into play. So JSPM is a package manager for System.js. So System.js is an initiative, an approach to unify all those things. AMD, globals, and CommonJS. And JSPM it builds on top of that to take advantage of System.js. So as I said, JSPM can use NPM modules, can easily fetch sources from GitHub, can also use Bower, and then other things. Which is interesting. It manages the dependencies in a flat way, which is also being worked on for NPM. So, do you use NPM version 3 or 2? Who uses 3? Okay. So there is this attempt to make it easier to manage dependencies with NPM. With JSPM, we have that already. And what's the most important thing is that in the future we wouldn't have to, the idea is not to worry about legacy systems. So most of the modules written for Node are CommonJS, and you have to think how to use them with ES6. So JSPM try to solve that for you, so you can already use those modules on daily basis. There are two projects that use JSPM. The one is Angular 2, and the other one is Aurelia. So it's taking off slowly. And today I would like to show you how to build a simple React application using JSPM. So it's gonna be live coding. I hope I will manage to build an application. So let's start. So I will start with. Do you see the command line at the back? Is it okay? Okay, I can maybe do it a little bit larger. So let's create a directory. And to start, as usual, we have to do npm init, because we need still npm to manage dependencies. Package JSON is like the universal way to manage dependencies. So the idea is to have this file into your source directory, so you can, when you give the source to somebody else, you can like easily fetch the dependencies. So we just set it as default for most of the questions. We don't really care about this. And then what we do is we use JSPM init. So we just say that we want to use JSPM. We mostly set it off by default. And there's one interesting question, which is this one, which asks us about the transpiler. Do you know what transpiler is? Does anyone who doesn't know what transpiler is? Okay, so I will explain. Transpiler is a tool that helps you to transform code written in ES6 standard, which is new JavaScript, or ES7, which is the like proposal for next version of JavaScript, next version, because ES6 is the next version. And transpiling means converting this syntax, which is new, into what we know now, which is regular JavaScript, ES5. So it's basically trying to convert the code from one thing to another. And we have two transpilers available today. One is called Tracer, and the other one is called Babel. And Babel is like the better one. I will show you why in a minute when we try to debug the application along the way. So I'm just saying that I want to Babel, and it tries to it fetches some dependencies. As you can see, it fetches some dependencies from npm. So in this case, it fetches Babel core, etc. And it fetches some dependencies from GitHub as well. So we don't have to worry about nitty-gritty details how it works. So yeah, let's wait a minute. Okay, so when it finishes, we have three items, let's say, into our directory, project directory. The one is config.js, which is configuration file for JSPM. The other one is package.json. As I said, this is the file will help us set up dependencies when some other people will fetch our project. And JSPM packages is like node modules, is where all our dependencies live. So the next thing is to next thing would be to what we can do. We can do npm install to install dependencies, and JSPM install. I think I just did this. Yeah. So let's create a directory for our application. So we have this. I will open Splime. Maybe just make it a little bit larger so you can see. So this is our, maybe smaller. This is our package.json. It's very simple. This is config.js. We set up some information about some mappings, for example. It says, for example, that Babel is mapped to npm, Babel core, etc. I will explain in a minute why it's important. And to make it work with React, we have to adjust a little bit the configuration. So in Babel options, we have to say explicitly that we want to blacklist nothing, because by default JSPM blacklists React. This is like a minor thing. In the new version, it's going to be resolved. I'm using version 0.16. In the version of JSPM 0.17 is going to be like this by default. But right now we have to say explicitly that we don't want to we don't want to blacklist anything. Okay, so we have that. So let's start a server in our directory. So as you can see, we have nothing here. So we will create a first file, which is index.html. And I don't think I have. So let's just build a simple like index.html. And what's important, we need to initialize JSPM. So we will use. We have to include two files. The first one is this JSPM packages system.js, and the other one is our config. And that's all we have to do regarding related to dependencies. So the next thing is to initialize, like to bootstrap our application. So what we need to do is we need to do system import, and we have to specify our main point, our like entry point for the application, which doesn't exist yet. So we'll have to create that. So it says that you should start application from the file called main.js. We don't have to specify the suffix, and which is inside the app folder. So let's create that file, and to see that it works, let's just say hello Poznan React or whatever, and let's just see if it works. So yeah, we don't see anything, but when we open the console, let me just switch it to and we open console. Yeah, we see it. We have hello Poznan, so it works. And as you can see, it was very simple. We didn't have to like make a lot of configuration to make it work, which is not always the case with npm or with other tools. Like we have to have some like watchers, like watchify for browserify, or we have to run some things in the background. But with JSPM, it works. So to make it more interesting, let's maybe check the network. So when I would refresh the page, you can see that JSPM fetches config.js as we defined, system.js. It also fetches ES6 module loader and our file. And later you will see that when I import new things, he will transparently fetch the file I need, and which is very interesting. So what we will do now is that we will try to install our first module. So are you familiar with this new API in a browser called Fetch? Do you know Fetch? Who knows Fetch? Okay. So Fetch is, for those who don't know, Fetch is this new API which allows us to make HTTP requests. And so if normally you would use jQuery for that, but it's like a huge dependency. And with Fetch we can like do HTTP requests without need to import a jQuery. Fetch is already a part of Chrome, but it's not a part of other browsers, so we have to polyfill this API. Do you know what is polyfill? Who knows what polyfill is? Okay, so for those who don't know what polyfill is a library which tries to emulate a feature of a browser in browsers that doesn't support this feature yet. So, for example, in Firefox, I think Fetch is not already implemented. So, if you want to build an application which uses Fetch API and it's universal across all browsers, you have to use a polyfill. So, we will use a polyfill because we want to build a universal application. So, this polyfill is called Fetch. So, let me, you know what? Let me just run the server in this. Oops, this is some older stuff. So I will run the server in this, and here we will continue with our. So to install our a new dependency, we can just say JSPM install, And we can say that we want to fetch a dependency from npm, so we have to prefix it with npm. And the name of the polyfill is what.vg fetch. So let's try to install that. So it's looking for this, and it finds it, and we have it. So right now, if I go back to the code and I say, for example, import what.vg fetch, it should just work. So let's see if it works. I refresh the browser, I check the network, and as you can see at the bottom, it fetches for me the file I needed, which is very cool. So, but it's not very. Close that. It's not very like useful to use strange names, and sometimes the name you want to use on GitHub is already taken or something like that, or maybe not on GitHub, but for npm it's already registered. And you'd like to have like a short name for some things. So what you can do with npm with JSPM is then you can say that you want to alias it, like use an alias for your dependency. So I can say that I want to use fetch as an alias for npm what.vg fetch. And if I say install, it will try to find it, and luckily on my box it will use this alias. Which as you can see, it uses fetch as this dependency we just used. So what I can do right now is I can just import fetch, and it should work. It should fetch. Fetch. Simply, let's just refresh it. I don't know why it doesn't work. Oh yeah, so it's here, fetch.js. Okay, so let's build a React application. So what we need is that I need to install React. And you should notice that I'm not specifying if I should use npm, but it knows that it should fetch the React from npm and all the dependencies. And the reason why is that there is this global repository when people can contribute and can say, for example, that, you know what, React you should find on npm, so you don't have to do it manually for all dependencies you use. So we are installing React and all dependencies. Let's wait a bit.
Can I have a question?
Yeah, sure.
So when you want to install some dependency, you don't have to add it to the packages.json. You just use the command line, and JSPM will automatically.
Exactly, that's the idea.
Okay.
Exactly. So with npm you can specify, for example, that you should save the file to package.json. But with this tool you don't have to do this, and the only information you need is that you should import system.js, which is this format for unified format for modules, config, and then the location of your main entry point in the application. That's all you have to do, and then you manage your dependencies by ES6 modules by importing them, like we did for fetch. And we will see how it works more in details for React. So with this new version of React,
how we can use HTML import by JSPM?
HTML import?
Yes, if you need to use web components.
That's a good question. I don't know. I can maybe, I will note it, but no idea.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with Polymer. But how does it work? Why it's different from? Is it based on CommonJS or AMD?
Lots of components, and you use HTML import to plug them and concat them by kind of browser API vulcanized.
Okay.
But it's not very comfortable, so I thought that you know how to use JSPM for that.
Sure. I can check it. I can check it. I can see how it. So the question is how I can use HTML import with JSPM, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So with this new React, we need. We also need React DOM as a new dependency because recently they split React into two modules to make it more adapted for like creating applications not only for the web but also for native applications. So we have both those dependencies. So let's create our first React component. Yeah, I didn't build Sublime, I'm sorry. So let's import. So what I'm doing here is that I'm importing. I'm doing this default import, which is a way of saying that I want to, from React module, I want to import this main thing, and I want to name it React. And the same thing for the React DOM. And later we will see how we can use default import and default exports with ES6 modules, how it works. But for now, you should just be with me, and it's going to be clear in a moment. So let's just create a class, because we want to be like ES6. It's cool. It's better than normal JavaScript, and we want to use the new syntax, which is class syntax. And let's create our first component. Okay, so we have it. Then we have to inject it into our application. Get element by ID content. Okay. Let's just create proper its ID, and it should work, but it doesn't.
You have to change render to render component.
No. I did it on purpose. I just wanted to show you something. So I misspelled the. It should set extends, right? Not extend. But I did extend because with Babel you can see that the error uses the debug information is untranspiled code, which is ES6 code, which is pretty amazing. So you write ES6 and you can debug ES6 into your browser. Normally you would debug ES5, which would be like transpiled code. So you wouldn't know to which part often, because the transpiled code is like a mess, you know. From the class syntax create like a lot of other secondary stuff. So with this, it's pretty amazing that you can easily debug your application. So
what if you leave debugger? What can you see in sources tab?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, with debugger it's the same. So if I sorry, I can debug untranspiled code. Sorry, it's still the syntax error. Yeah. So as you can see, I'm using the like ES6 syntax while debugging.
Does it do source form on the fly? Or?
Yeah, exactly. It maps. So this is like the thing from the future you can use right now. And you don't have to worry about configuring it on your own. I'm not sure if you use source maps. Who uses source maps? Like who has to configure them? Yeah, which is often a pain because there are many things to take care of. And with this, you already have that. So debugging is like very simple. But let's check if it works. So let's just run it. Yeah, it works. We have our first React application built with JSPM using ES6 syntax, with ES6 modules, imports, etc. So let's go further and let's see how we can improve it. Yeah, one more thing. So as I said, JSPM is clever enough to fetch dependencies for you. But why it's not? Yeah, so as you can see, it should let me just check. Yeah, I'm not sure why it doesn't work, but normally it should fetch transparently the React, for example, library. I don't know why it doesn't work. Let's maybe go on. So what we want to do, we want to create some like kind of simple application which interacts with an API, and we will use GitHub for that. So we will create a function called /for_user, and we will try to fetch public repositories of a user which is specified. So here I'm using this new syntax for ES6, which allows to make those string interpolation like in Ruby or Python, which doesn't exist in JavaScript. So I don't have to concatenate strings as we all did in the past, right? I can just specify the name of the variable, and I can it's being interpolated. So the next thing is that we will use our fetch API to fetch things from this URL. It returns a promise, so we have to response. And there is also this fat arrow syntax. Are you familiar with fat arrow syntax? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So it fetches the things from it. Great. Thank you. Okay. So we have this function. Let's test it. Let's see if it works. So what I have to do is that I have to import repos or user from API, and here I have to do the export, which is called named export. I will explain in a minute how it works, but let's just test if it works. If it's working. Repos for users, my username, and let's fetch it. So it doesn't work. Repos for users. Oh yeah. Console log. Yeah, sorry, I have to change it. So repos, console log, repos. Yeah, so it fetches the list of things from GitHub. And right now let's try to build a React application based on that. So let's go further. So first thing we need would be, let's create a component called repo list. So we will, one more thing about exporting and importing things. So here the syntax is different. So before we did import and we just specified the name, and here we are using the curly braces. The difference is that this is default import and this is named import. And the difference is that sometimes some ES6 modules can specify like the main point you need to import for the application to make it work. And sometimes you just need to specify which files which modules or functions should be visible, and you can achieve that using this named export syntax. So the idea is that while exporting, I'm just specifying which functions from this module should be visible, and then on the other hand, I can just import them by specifying things. But for the component we are about to create, we will use default export because we want to make it a main thing of our module. So we will create repo list which extends React component, and then we have to import React. And then we just need to render, and let's see if it works. And then I'm just gonna import repo list from repo list.js, and then let's wrap it into and let's see if it works. Yeah, it works. It's working. So we have our first, we composed our components pretty easy. So what we are going, what we need to do is we need to initialize this component to render the things we fetch using fetch API. So with class syntax, we should use constructor to get our initial state instead of get initial state from regular React and regular JavaScript. We just need to pass props up, and then we need to say that the state is just repos empty array, and that's it. When the component did update, we just need to fetch repos for user, for a specific user. We need to chain that. We get repositories, and then we just need to set state and specify that our repos are the repos we fetch from the fetch API, which is a very basic stuff we do here. And yeah. And next, finally, we will create another component, repo. Oh, sorry. To make it faster, I just copy that. Tac. For React from React, and repo. Voila. And we just need render method here, which will render let's just quickly do some. So this props row name, and the same for description. Okay, so we have that, and next we just need to render this here. So what we will do is we will make we will map over a repo with a repo as our argument, and we will return LE key repo ID for faster rendering, and then we render repo component. Repo, and we close LE, and this thing should work. Now we have some errors. Okay, the problem is with repo list render. because we don't return anything, obviously. So we just have to return UL and the thing we just created with map. So repos.
Was the Ajax call executed?
Sorry?
If the Ajax call was executed in the console, we haven't seen it.
Was the Ajax call executed?
Yeah, if you fetch the repositories.
Which component?
Because you
repo list. Like does component did update? Is it like even trigger?
Yeah.
Maybe you should call component did mount, yeah?
Yes, exactly. This was what I was thinking of.
Right. No, still, repos for user is not defined.
Missing import?
Yeah, because we don't have it here. Repos not defined. Exactly. Repo. And works. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you how easy it is with your help to create a React application with JSPM, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Do you have any questions? Like,
how would you bundle it to production?
yeah, excellent question. Excellent question. So, are you familiar with HTTP 2.0?
Mm-hmm.
So with this protocol, we won't need to bundle things because we will have this pipelining into the protocol. So the JSPM takes advantage of that, but you can also bundle things right now. So there is JSPM bundle command, if I recall correctly, which allows you to bundle things, minify using like amplify or something like that. So you can do traditional things like you did with browserify and other stuff, but it's also made for the future. And in the future, the idea would be not to bundle things, but to take advantage of this pipelining feature of the upcoming HTTP protocol. So, yeah. Other questions?
Is it like supposed to be a replacement for Yeoman? Because I saw that there was a kind of a generator at the beginning where you chose all the like parameters, what transpilers you use, and so on.
I think it could be used. Yeah, sorry. I think it could be used as a replacement for Yeoman. I think what's really appealing regarding JSPM is that it's very simple, like conceptually simple, as React is. For example, when you compare React with AngularJS introduces like many concepts, many abstractions. You have factories, services, you have like a lot of things related to scope. And React is very simple because it only has component abstraction. And JSPM is the same. Yeoman, it's like a lot of things. You have to add plugins, or it generates a lot of boilerplate. Sorry. And JSPM is just a tool to get you started. So it's much simpler and it's more transparent, and you know what's going on under the hood. So well, yeah.
Does it work with React Hot Loader?
Good questions. I'm about to check this out. I'm still using Webpack when I'm like doing these workshops and other stuff. We're still using Webpack, so I haven't checked this. But yeah, I know it uses. There is a way to like connect those two worlds. Yeah.
As far as I remember, in the Webpack we can also import style sheet or template to bundle it together. Is it also possible in JSPM, or is a whole other concept?
To be honest, I don't know. I haven't. I don't know. I cannot answer these questions. I need to check this. This is a very good question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
When you used JSPM to install dependency, you specified npm once. So does that mean that there are potentially other sources of packages?
Yeah. For example, GitHub.
Also,
so
you
you
can
directly fetch
okay.
JavaScript from. You have to check exactly which like module system is used, but you can fetch them using. So the idea is to like unify package management across different sources.
So and then you said that like you installed React without specifying any source. So where is this mapping?
Yeah. I will show you maybe to make it more. With JSPM you have this registry which is simply just where is it? Which is simple JSON file available on GitHub, which is maps.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Right, which it says that Coffee is from GitHub, for example, and I know Adam is from NPM, etc., etc. So it's just simple as that. And what I like about JSPM is simplicity of a tool.
Cool.
Other questions? Okay, so maybe let's chain with another presentation. It's going to be about React rates, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.